Vicky's big hand is pointing at the 12, and so I will call things back to order. This is our first business session, and we'll be dealing with accountability reports. You've all had the opportunity to review the accountability reports of the executive minister and the regional council executive, which are available on the website. Before I open the floor to questions about those reports, our executive minister, Peter Hartmans, has a supplementary comment he would like to make.
Friends, it's, nice to see all of you in person. I gave a similar report to Canadian Shield Regional Council, and as out of desire to be fair and equal between the two regions I serve, I wanted to share the same with you. I have been absent from the regional council for about 4 months, and on graduated return, I'm glad this is sanctuary. I'm a little emotional. I had 3 strokes since August. The first in August when I went on vacation and I didn't come back for several months. And then when I got back, I had another one and spent some time in the stroke unit. I am back to work full-time now, which I'm really grateful for. For some of you who know me well, on a very practical note, I've lost lots of weight. I look a little different now. I share this to you because I feel like as executive minister, I'm a public figure, and even though I know it's a private matter, you folks, I serve you, and because of my absence, I haven't been able to serve you. And so I've been grateful for folks who have been scurrying behind the scenes. First, my supervisor, Michael, at that time, who got the call that said, I'm not coming back, and him taking a deep breath, that's Michael Blair. And then Jody Maltby and Diane Matheson Humanis, who took the role of acting very quietly, and the presidents and chair of Canadian Shield and Shining Waters, who got the call. Yep. Part of having a stroke is when you recover, you're a little more emotional, and that's a result. But I am doing well. I don't have a lot of residual effects. One of the realities, I wasn't able to go to the Canadian Shield Regional Council meeting in person because of the lack of, according to my neurologist, lack of equal health care across Ontario, and they couldn't ensure that there was a neurologist in the Sioux, so I couldn't go, which I was really disappointed about. But there's lots of neurologists in Brampton, so if something happens, I'm all set. But my wife said she does not want to visit me in Brampton and would rather I come home. So, if you're an advocate for healthcare, that is something to advocate for, equal healthcare around Ontario, and I learned that in a living way. One of the things I wanted to share with you is that when I told the Canadian Shield constituents that, first I was embarrassed that I couldn't go, and I know that's probably not a natural or good feeling, but I was, and I thought they were going to be disappointed in me, and they said, oh, of course you can't go, we don't have equal health care. So it wasn't a surprise to them. I did want to thank our staff who supported me, Sue, who took my texts from the hospital, my supervisor, Michael, who was great, for David and Tina before, who were also very supportive and kind, and Nancy at the back, the executives who had to scurry in the background, and because of confidentiality, told nobody that it was going on and what they were dealing with in the background. And so I was really grateful for that. And I'm thankful for the prayers of folks who did know, and the prayers of the prayer room that they have been holding me in my prayers. And one of my friends here said, "You look a little tired," and if you're wondering why, that's why. So one of the other symptoms is just fatigue. You get really tired. So I'm really glad to be here. This is the first public event I've been to, and it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to be here. And so, I just wanted to make sure, I know I said it partly, but to all our staff who worked really, really hard in the background and had to work double duty to cover for me.
Thank you, Peter, and we are delighted to have you back in body as well as in spirit. I will now open the floor to any questions regarding the accountability reports. And if you do have a question, please come to either of the microphones or raise your virtual hand on screen, and we'll get to you. And please introduce yourself before you ask your question. I believe there is someone online. Lang, would you unmute yourself and make sure that your camera is on?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but not see you.
No, something's wrong with my system. So as long as you can hear me, I just wanted to say that I was a little disappointed in the accountability reports that there was no mention made of the incorporated ministries, which the region is responsible for, and which carry out a great deal of important work on behalf of the church. And that you are our overseers in the region. Just as an example, let me just talk a little bit shortly about Weston King Neighborhood Center. We have two incorporated ministries operating out of Central. The other is Central King Seniors Residence, which is considered to be one of the best run residence for seniors in the city of Toronto. The other thing about the neighborhood center, I'd like to just give you an example. Last year, for instance, we served over 50,000 meals to the neighborhood, most of them now coming in, but we were going all through the COVID, delivering meals at the door to people to take home. That's just one example of some of the work we help with, with the housing issues, and we try to meet people where they're at whenever they come in. Also, you've got two ministries you support yourselves directly, which is the Davenport Perth and the one up north, which Jane Finch. So I just bring it to your attention that there is important work going on, which is not being recognized by the region in this annual meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. And are there any other questions or comments on the accountability reports?
Lang, I really appreciate your comment. I regret that it's not in. Then I wrote that for the executive to discuss and add. in following years. But having said that, I will verbally say to the court that the incorporated ministries do an incredible work on behalf of the United Church of Canada in many different ways. And it is a pleasure for us as the United Church to support them as oversight, but also in partnership. I had the pleasure of going to Toronto United Church Council annual meeting yesterday night, and they highlighted the incredible work of our camps along with TUCC, which is an incorporated ministry of the United Church of Canada, and the many, many other incorporated ministries in our regional council and across the United Church of Canada. So thank you, Lang, for highlighting that. And I will say I regret that that's not in the report. So thank you.
I do not see any other expressions of a desire to ask questions or make comments. So I will invite Alice Matunji to come up to this podium to present the nominations report.
David. As David said, my name is Alice Mutunji, and I'm from the Uganda Martyrs United Church congregation. I'm pleased to present the report of the nominations committee as found in the resource book and on the website. The report contains the list of all those who are recommended to serve on the executive and on commissions and committees in the Regional Council for the coming year. Tomorrow, we'll consider a motion to elect those named in the report. Nominations are still being accepted until 6 p.m. today. I want to draw your attention that there are a number of vacancies still to be filled if possible. If you feel called to put your name forward for a position, please speak to me or to Jody. Those online, please let Diane know through the chat. Positions can also be filled by motion of the executive after this meeting has ended. So if you need time for discernment, you can still reach out to Jody in the coming weeks with any questions or to put your name forward. The committee wishes to offer thanks to all those who serve the Regional Council, and particularly those whose terms are ending with this regional meeting. We are grateful for your leadership. That includes me. You may remember that last year we received a proposal regarding the process for election of a president-elect. The Regional Council affirmed a process for an election during the regional meeting that involves all candidates. The nominations committee worked diligently in the lead up to this meeting to find multiple candidates for the position. We thought we had two, but one person decided not to pursue the opportunity, which left us with only one candidate. However, we are pleased to present Reverend Eric Nyako for the position of president-elect. You will have the opportunity to hear from Reverend Eric following this report. This year, we're also electing candidates to serve as commissioners to the 45th General Council. Commissioners serve for 3 years as voting members of the National Council, starting in June 2025 until the beginning of the next General Council in 2028. The commissioners will attend an in-person meeting at the Taylor Center in Calgary, Alberta, from August 7th to the 12th in 2025. Commissioners who are unable to be in Calgary can participate online. They also attend the annual meeting of the General Council held each year on a Saturday in October, along with any other special meeting of the General Council as needed until the following General Council is convened. Shining Waters may elect 14 commissioners. We are seeking a balance of ministry personnel and lay people, reflecting the diversity of people within the United Church, a broad geographic presence, and both new and experienced delegates. In addition to the 14 elected by the Regional Council, the President will attend, as will our current acting President, David Layton Brown, who is a member of the General Council Executive. At this meeting, we are presenting 11 candidates and 1 alternate. Because the President-elect that we choose at this meeting will assume the role of President in October 2025, our current President, Tina Conlon, would attend the meeting in Calgary, but not continue to serve for the remainder of the term. For this reason, we are presenting our President-elect as a candidate to be a commissioner and our current President as an alternate. This means that they both will be able to serve for the full 3-year term. We have 3 additional spots that must be filled by October 31 of this year. The nominations committee will continue to recruit with a focus on diversity and, in particular, possible youth candidates from our delegation to Rendezvous this summer. But if there are others who feel called to serve in this way, please speak to Jody, who is staff support to the nominations committee. Acting President, this concludes the report of the nominations committee.
Thank you, Alice. Before we open the floor for questions, I invite Reverend Eric Niarco to come to the podium to share a few words about his vision for the Regional Council over the next few years.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak and the opportunity to serve. As we've all heard, my name is Eric Nyako. Currently serving at the Ghana Calvary Methodist United Church. I was born and raised in Ghana, West Africa, where I served as a military instructor in my former life. What I would like to tackle is the challenges that, in my perspective, facing the Shining Waters Regional Council, the United Church of Canada, and possibly permit me to say all the other regional councils. I see these challenges as not only affecting our regional council, but Christianity in Canada in general. And the major challenges facing the region that I have laid down is closing down of community of faith or churches and the lack of youth and the young people in our places of worship or our community of faith. We will all bear witness that there is the lack of youth and young people in the church. And this is a major challenge This is because it threatens the future of the church. And if care is not taken, we will be leading to a time whereby most churches will be closed down or churches might not be in existence. In the mainstream churches, majority of members are over 50 years of age, with very few or no young people in attendance. I'm not by this against the elderly or the ages offending church, but the need for balance to have the young people to understand and learn from the old people as they journey on. As we all know, they are the backbone of the church. They are the future of the church, but the future is now. This is a serious concern, and if care is not taken, the next few decades, majority of our churches will not be in existence, as there will be few or no young people to take over the church. There is the need for more young people in our churches who can be groomed by the older generations in order to carry the mantle in the years to come. To be able to deal with these challenges, there is the need to include the youth and the young people in all decision makings. This is a serious concern, as we all know. So to be able to get the youth and the young people in our pews, there is the need to set a national, which is from the General Council, regional and congregational budget for youth development. So as we gather as people, there is the need for the General Council, all regional councils, and every community of faith to have a budget set aside for youth development so that we can build a stronger future. We need a national directorate, maybe as mentioned in the General Council office, and that will cut across to all departments overseeing the work of youth and young adults or young people at all levels. Based on this, I will recommend about 25% of young people in the leadership structure of the church. We will all bear witness, should we take opportunity to count the number of young people here, we will see that it speaks volume. How would the future be? How can we move on? And how will they succeed us as we journey along? As I mentioned earlier, when I took care, or when I was appointed to serve at Ghana Calvary as their minister, there were no young people. And when I add myself and my wife, we can count about 5 or 6. We have to work hand in hand, meeting with other people, other challenges, how to resolve them. And to the glory of God, now we have more people, more young people than the elderly. One thing is they feel connected because they felt the minister serving is also a young person, his age, so they can relate. There are times in the summer, I wear jersey, go to the football field with them, we play soccer together, we play table tennis, we do all activities that brings the young people together. Maybe it's high time we encourage the young people to also, those who feel called to enter into ministry so that we can work around ourselves, because we have a common language that we understand each other than talking to other people. It is a fact that the church is the instrument of Christ, called to carry out the mission of Christ at this time. When Jesus finished his earthly work, he promised his disciples empowerment for mission. According to Acts Gospel, the book of Acts, chapter number 1:8, and commissioned them to go and make disciples of all nations, as stated in the Matthew Gospel 28:19-20. A lot of people know us as members of the Shining Waters Regional Council and the United Church of Canada, for whom we are, but they don't know us for whom we are not. Let us go out there, preach to them about who we members of the Shining Waters Regional Council and the United Church of Canada what we are not, so that they will understand better and be part and parcel of us. People of God, there is the need also for us to go out there and meet people who are going through difficulties, people who are facing challenges, because our core duty as Christians is to rescue the perishing, care for those that are dying, be there for those who do not have their voice, seek justice and their justice for those that are down. There are a lot of people scattered, people finding a place to sleep, people who don't know where to go, as we heard from our dear sister, people who are not even documented in the country. We have a lot of refugees out there. As a church, our voice can speak volume if we can all come together. And whatever we do or say will also have the opportunity to bring people to serve and worship with us. On the issue of closing down of churches, there is the need to see the declining churches as half full than to see it as half empty. I ask myself these questions, and it has become something that I reflect on every blessed day. Why are we closing down our churches? Because there are people who are now planting churches. I had opportunity to visit a friend who was planting a church, and starting with the wife, the minister himself, and 2 people. And you could see the energy, you could see the strength, you could see the happiness with which they are planting the church. But unfortunately for us, if number reduces, we feel the need to close the church down, because we feel tired, we think we cannot continue. If these young people are in the church, it is easy to transition. It is easy for them to take over. So let's see this as a half full than seeing it as half empty. Then we can all come together and build it. We also need to support churches that are down. Most churches just need a kind of push, being it financial, being it presence, being it encouragement to move on. So let us position ourselves so that we can help each other to grow. And this would draw us back to this clustering that we were talking about. If we have a kind of relationship, that we will not wait for 1 year annual meeting, but we can have a group, let's say between those in North York, those around downtown, those around Brampton or Mississauga, or around the lake, can form a clustering group so that they will be there for each other, they will be there to support each other. Then we can grow as a regional council and a community of faith. It is interesting to also know that the people who are planting churches sometimes have no place to go in terms of difficulties. But for us, those churches that are facing challenges have a place, i.e. the regional council or other colleague ministers and colleague executives to reach out to for support. So let us avail ourselves to be supportive. I am of the firm belief that with collective effort, dedication, and zeal, we can move the church and the Shining Waters Regional Council forward. I feel God is calling all of us, not one person, all of us at this time to build the church. Therefore, I will end by saying, let us avail ourselves, let us get ourselves ready, let us rise and build the church of God. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric, for those thoughtful reflections. Now, if anyone has questions about the report of the nominations committee, I invite you to come to a microphone if you're on site, or type your question into the chat if you are online. And please remember to identify yourself before you ask your question. Being none, we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the financial report and budget. Before we get to the financial report, I would like to inform all members of the Regional Council that the executive has decided to defer the presentation of the 2025 budget until an online regional meeting to be held no later than November 30th of this year. There are 3 reasons for that delay. The first is that the 2025 budget necessarily is built on the financial results of 2024. And we are only 5 months into 2024 at this point. There would be a huge amount of guesswork in a draft budget this early in the year, such as to make the impact of that budget of limited meaningfulness. Second reason is that some of the key expenditures in the 2025 budget are not known at this time. The most important one of those is increases to staff salaries. The cost of living increase for ministerial personnel will be determined by a different formula across the United Church for 2025 than has been the case for the past number of years. We don't know yet what the salary increases for 2025 will be, and so we cannot budget for those increases. And the third reason is that the agenda of this regional council meeting contains proposals that, if adopted by the regional council, would have a dramatic impact on any budget prepared prior to their adoption. And so it seemed only reasonable to wait until the outcome of decisions about those proposals before shaping a budget that will respond to whatever happens at this meeting. So for that combination of reasons, there will be a special meeting of the Regional Council to be held entirely online. It will take place, as I said earlier, no later than the end of November, which means it might be earlier in the fall. And a more firmly grounded budget will be able to be presented at that time. That being said, we will now hear a financial report for 2023. And I invite our finance administrator, Janet McDonald, who's with us online, to turn on your camera and unmute yourself so that you can be spotlighted. Following Janet's presentation, there will be an opportunity for questions and comments.
Thank you, President David, or past President David. There is a financial report. It is not yet completely audited. It's in process at the auditors. So I am going to share my screen. The other thing I'm going to say is that following my presentation, we're going to hear a little bit of a presentation from the Grants Committee to explain the grants, because we always talk about over $1 million in grants, but yet when you'll see the financials in a second, it doesn't look like that. So I'm going to say something and then the Grants Committee is going to say something. So give me a second to share my screen and the financial statements. Okay. Sorry, my glasses have to come off in order to see this. So we have financial, I'm going to do the balance sheet first. And remember, a balance sheet is a snapshot. It's like when you take a camera and you take a picture. This is the snapshot at the end of December, and there's another snapshot at the end of April. So I've got 2 columns. This is the end of December. This is the end of April this year. At the end of December, we had a huge amount in cash. I'm going to be honest. We had just sold some properties, and it had not yet been transferred over to investments. So we had over 2 million, almost $3 million in cash at the end of the year. That number you see the end of April is dropped substantially. The investment money, we had 6.7 million in investments at the end of December. At the end of April, we have $12.1 million in investments. We have receivables, and that's sort of normal for any organization that operates. We have grants that are receivable. We have some donations. And we have some money coming back from the government for our sales tax credits, and those are there. We have non-performing loans on the books. Non-performing loans are loans that we have made to congregations, generally who are really cash strapped, need some help. We don't expect repayment until such time if they sell their buildings. And for most of these, we hope this cash will never be repaid and that it will show up forever and these congregations succeed and do well. Prepaid expenses is whatever was paid at the end of the year for 2024. It's really not a substantial amount. The promissory notes are the ones that are probably, for most of you, are going to go, what the heck is going on? We've been talking since 2019 of being able to fund the work of the region through investment in property, developing properties, using some properties for income, just straight rental. During the year, we have transferred the money to a trust fund held by the region. We have transferred many properties. Total value of the properties we transferred, when they came to us, they were a $0 transfer. In other words, we didn't pay for them. The way our policy works is they come to the region. When we transferred them to the trust, we had to transfer them at fair market value. We have over $33 million in properties that are in the trust right now, and they are set up such that they are promissory notes to the region from the regional trust. So, I mean, we look at really good shape.
Janet, I'm sorry to interrupt. Folks in the plenary are having trouble seeing the numbers. Could you make your screen a little bit larger?
That person in this group and that group. There are general counsel. We have to pay them for salaries. There's an amount there to be paid for salaries. And we have, why it's so big, or actually for both of these, is there are properties that we have sold. 10% of the sales of the properties, the congregation has the right to ask how they be distributed to other charities. We had one at the end of December that had not yet been distributed, and we had another one the end of April. So those are the big amounts there.
Janet, before you move on, could you please make your screen a little larger? Folks are having trouble seeing the numbers.
I can try.
At the bottom, there's a bar, and on the right-hand side, it indicates 100%. If you slide it.
Yeah, I know. Just give me 2 seconds. Is that better?
Awesome. Thank you so much. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, that's okay. I'm also going to warn everybody. I'm getting warnings that my internet is not stable. So if I disappear, I apologize. Okay, we have some special funds within the region. We have an archives fund, 3% from the sale from every property we sell goes to the archives fund. It's to fund archives in basically forever. We have a fund to support Indigenous ministries. There is currently a cap on that fund of 1 million. During the month of May, we have reached that cap. $1 cap, that's still in the works. Again, the end of May, we are now we have reached the current cap of 6 million. Are what are showing there. Now I'm going to flip to the income statement, and I'll try and do the same thing. Make it bigger. Is that better?
Janet, can you hear me?
Yeah, I
we
can
just
hear you.
lost you. We just lost this, Peter. We just lost you for 2 minutes. So you have to go back just a little bit. You were frozen. With a
Okay,
beautiful smile, but you were still frozen. So
where was I?
about right there, yeah.
Okay, I'll repeat what I said.
Indigenous Ministries, yeah.
Okay, basically we have some special funds within the region. We have the Archives Fund, which I think you heard is 3% of sales of properties. Indigenous Ministries support is 10% after all the expenses of a sale of a property has happened. There is a $1 million cap there. That cap has now been reached in May. The regional fund has a $6 million cap currently. The finance committee is recommending that go to 10. It is currently at 6 now. It was not at the end of April. We look pretty good. So now I'm going to flip to the income statement and keep going in case I lose.
Sorry, Janet, you did great up till, if you just scrolled up a little bit more, we lost a sentence or two there. Everybody wants to hear your punchline. So after the regional fund, you were moving on to the student bursary fund. That's where we missed you. She's not frozen, is she? Oh, there we go. Are you there, Janet?
I'm here.
Okay, yeah, so just at the bursary fund, we lost you and then go forward.
Okay, the student bursary, and I apologize, I don't know what's going on with my internet. It's happened before. The student bursary fund is administered by the Office of Vocation for students when they have special needs or extra needs or they run into financial trouble. Our equity is equity is always a balancing number on a financial statement. And our total liabilities and equities are equal to our total assets.
When Janet comes back, I'm going to get her to turn off her camera. That's always a good trick. Yeah. Everybody's probably been wanting to yell that at me, so we're going to do that. Janet, can you we love seeing you, but I think we're losing you here and there. Can you turn off your camera so you're just at voice, and then I think you'll be more stable. Can you hear me? Okay. She is in an excellent town with excellent internet, so it must be just something very specific. There we go.
Okay.
Okay.
If I turn my camera on, we got it?
Yeah, we can hear you
now.
But
now I can't give you a screen. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, okay, Donna said yes. Okay, so I'm going to talk, and I'm hoping you guys can see the screen. Tell me when I need to move it, because I can't tell what you're seeing. Okay, on our income side.
Yep.
Sorry, Peter, I missed that.
Oh, I said, well, I'll tell you when to move the screen.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't get it. Yes, I definitely have an unstable internet. Okay. Our income side. We'll pay attention basically to the year end. You can look at the numbers. We get grants from General Council every year. They are shown in the first line. We have investment income. It looks like a negative in the 4 months. Income is, we got to be questioning 2023. Is the majority of it part of Canada jobs. We had property sales during the year, $9 million. Now we have to go to the expenses, and we've sold
Janet, we're on the wrong
this
screen
year as well of 3.1.
We're on the wrong screen. I think you're on property income right now.
I am, and I'm okay.
Right now, we're looking at expenses, affirm commissions, etc.
Yeah, I have to put video on, I believe, to do it. So let's see what happens.
Okay.
Okay, can you see now?
We can see expenses we're in miscellaneous income, see grants, investment income, miscellaneous.
Okay,
That's the income.
property
that's the
sales.
income side. Which is what I just talked about. So I'm going to keep my screen. If I lose, tell me, and if I have to turn video, I can't leave video off and have you see my screen.
Just as for folks who actually have the workbook, it's actually in the workbook, so that
it's in the, yeah, if you have your workbook, it's in the workbook. This is exactly what's in the workbook. For our expenses,
what
I'm
page number? I'm looking quick. Thank you. I have a pre-copy that doesn't have page numbers on it.
I don't have the page numbers. I'm sorry.
Sorry. It's on the website. It's not in the workbook.
Have you got it?
It's on the regional council website under finances. So if you have a tablet or a phone, you can follow along. But it's on the actual regional council website. Okay, go forward, Janet.
Okay, expenses, the affirm expenses, a big part of that is the parade in Toronto. This is for community of faith there, but they're really part of a contingency line. Okay, Donna says
Janet, you're freezing too much, and it's not. We're missing too many words to understand what you're saying. So I think we're going to pause for a moment. I have a solution. If you call in on your phone, but keep your screen on, at least we can follow along on and off. And maybe we move to the grants report and then come back while Dan.
Why don't you have the grants report and we'll see if we can get hooked up that way.
We're going to come back they're going to do the grants report, and then, sorry to startle you guys, and then we'll come back to Janet when we get the tech problem figured out. If you phone online using the Zoom number, that'll be more secure.
We ready? All right. So I bring greetings from Manor Road United Church. My name is John Joseph Massandrea, and I co-chair the Grants and Mission Support Committee with Deborah Hart, and I celebrate 35 years in serving the United Church. I was ordained in Owen Sound. There was about 25 or 30 of us that year, 1,500 people in attendance in a hockey arena. That's what we used to do. But it's an honor to be here. And the theme of sanctuary is a great moment, isn't it? So that sense of gathering and being together. And to touch on the theme of one person's talking about women in the church, let's remember Lillian Massey, who started the first college for women at U of T. Thanks be to God, 1905. Yes, women couldn't go to U of T before that. But guess what? Very creative. She created the Faculty of Household Science so women can just go to school. They learned law, medicine, history, everything. She blazed the trail. She was a feminist before there were feminists. It's a great gift to be here in many turns. Alderwood United is here doing the prayer room. I came from Alderwood United when I was 15. So here we are. Shining Waters Regional Council approved 28 grants. $1.2 million grants were given to camps and other programs for children, youth, and young adults. And let's draw attention to Camp Scugog, which helps marginalized children from all over Southern Ontario. One of the things we used to do, just a bit of a segue, I remember being in York Presbytery, where Camp Big Canoe would do a big shout out to their camp. Perhaps we need to hear more of that again at what we do. Community ministries, many are in Toronto and beyond. One more thing we're also doing is we're looking at what the definition of is a community ministry so we can expand the ministries that are actually doing that work to be included under that portfolio. Ecumenical interfaith chaplaincies that help make a difference in many people's lives. Indigenous ministries and right relations. Remember a little fun fact. It was the 1990s where the Ethnic Ministry Committee were the midwives for the Toronto Urban Native Ministry. Why do I know this? I was on the steering committee. And we started, it was a joint project with the Anglican Church, the Catholic Church, and the United Church. Missions, outreach ministries. Funds for grants come from the Mission and Service Fund. I served 2 Mission and Service Fund churches. One was an internship in Harrington Harbor, 3 planes and now a boat ride east of here, almost Newfoundland, and Hearst, 12 hours north of here, an Anglican United Church. I benefited, and places continue to benefit from the work of the Mission Service Fund. I also chaired the Chinese mission that used to be in York Presbytery that benefited from the Mission Service Fund. The PTCC grant, the Presbyteries and Toronto Conference Corporation, the Toronto Southeast Presbytery Major Capital Fund, and the St. Enoch's Fund, both of which are managed by TUCC and Shining Waters Regional Council. And just to add, there are many churches that would like to apply for grants, but sometimes they do not have the capacity to do so. So we're really working to help make many of those have-not churches be able to process the applications necessary to do so. And finally, currently, our granting program is open only to previous grant recipients that were identified by the former presbyteries. Our goal is to have an open granting process so that any ministry within Shining Waters can openly apply for funding. We hope to be able to open the granting process for the 2026 grant, but that will be dependent on building up sufficient capital in PTCC. I think our hope, and many people's hope, is that we are on the advent threshold of celebrating a centennial. And we don't just go to 100. Yes, let's clap for that. Centennial. We have to remember a bit of history. It was the Anglicans in 1880 who said, why don't you join our team? They left the conversation, so did the Baptists. And a third of the Presbyterians said, not for us. But remember, it was just 10 years earlier where the Methodist churches, 5 of them joined together to form the Methodist Church of Canada. 5 Presbyterian churches formed the Presbyterian Church of Canada, same with the Congregational Church. But let's remember also our brothers and sisters in Saskatchewan and the West. The Union churches, they figured it out. They said, we can't have 5 churches, let's have 1. So they formed the Union churches, where 5 years you'd have a Lutheran, 5 years you'd have a Presbyterian, 5 years you'd have a Methodist. They helped pave the way and stir the soil to plant the seed so that the United Church of Canada could be born. Let's look forward to something truly wonderful.
And I'm Jody Maltby, and I support the Finance Committee. I support the Grants and Mission Support Committee, and I also support the Communities of Faith Commission. And so I'm kind of pulling a few of the threads together from those, because Janet mentioned that when she comes back and is continuing, you'll notice that while John Joseph said we gave out $1.2 million worth of grants, in our financial statement, it only indicates just over $577,000 in grants. And the reason for this is that those reflect the grants that came out of the funds of Shining Waters Regional Council that we have in our bank accounts that are managed by Janet and the Finance Committee. We also have access to funds through PTCC. And we have access to the funds that John Joseph mentioned, the Toronto Southeast Presbytery Major Capital Fund and the St. Enoch's Fund and mission and service grants. So the remaining about $700,000 worth of grants come from those sources. And all of those sources are currently funded through funds dispersed from the sale of property. So when John Joseph talks about the commitment of the Grants Committee to an open granting process, part of the work of the Finance Committee and the Grants Committee and the Communities of Faith Commission is figuring out how to utilize the funds that we do receive from the sale of property to support this granting process so that it can become an open one, to also support our community ministries fund that we committed to last year. We are trying to build a $10 million fund for that, and to support the work of the regional council. So those three pieces all come together in that conversation, and we really do hope for those of you who have asked for funds and we haven't been able to support that, we do hope that we'll be able to do that.
I think we're back with Janet. I think she has a phone line now on Zoom, and whoever yelled out, I asked her to mute her camera, good reminder, on her Zoom link. And I think she's ready to come back and try for number 2. You there, Janet? Okay. No, I can't hear anything, Janet.
Janet, you need to unmute by pressing star and 6.
Star 6. She didn't hear the introduction of the meeting, maybe. Oh.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yay!
Okay, now let's try screen sharing and see if we can get through this. I apologize, but I think I know what happened. High school is out, which means that the high school kids are using the internet with, which is a normal thing for here. Okay, did we get through, and I'm going to ask somebody, did we get through the balance sheet or do we need to go back to it?
How about we go back to income around outreach ministries and then go forward from there?
Okay.
Yeah.
The outreach ministries is income that comes in for our outreach ministries. Some of it's donations, Canada student job grants for Camp Awesome that was held last year. And we also get some nice sized donations from some people for some of the specific things in the project. The regional meeting, and this is me, there is some money coming this year. There was money came in last year, but I netted it. So when we get to the expenses, it's a net amount. Property sales, we sold $9 million in property last year. So far this year, we've sold $3.5 million in property. That's actual sales, not transfers to the trust. So we're going to go to the expenses. Our basic expenses, we have things like a firm that we support. We have our commissions. We have 4 of them. They all do different things. They all come up with their own budgets. This is what they've spent. Our contingency and miscellaneous budget also includes our sales tax, which is in and out. We get most of our sales tax back. So that's where that is. Actually selling the properties, we had some very large HST bills last year. We're also getting a very large refund. Corporation oversight is the amount we pay to the National Church to oversee our corporations for us, to do the paperwork. The finance includes the budget and my fees. Grants and outreach ministries, and this is where Jody was saying, it only looks like we're spending $577,000 on grants. And the reality is, those are the grants we administer within the we administer a lot of grants within the region. We only pay some of them. TUCC pays some, PTCC, and some of the other funds pay them. Legal fees are $40,000 last year. Selling property costs money. Managed properties, these are the properties that we have been managing. The numbers will be down this year because of the ones we have transferred to the trust, and we've also sold some of them. Office expenses are what they are, and includes our rents, our paper, our toner, our photocopiers, and all those things. The regional meeting costs, and that's where I said this is a net last year, but the regional meeting costs almost $40,000, which is Not bad considering we budgeted 85 for it. Sabbatical grants are grants given for pastoral charges when ministry personnel take sabbaticals. We had quite a few take advantage last year. The maximum grant is $3,500 per congregation. This year we've had one returned and one went out, so we're at a zero balance right now. The staff team amount for last year is $1.1 million. That does not just include salaries, that includes salaries, continuing education, internet costs, cell phone costs, and travel costs for the staff. Support to our Indigenous ministries comes from the Indigenous Ministries Fund, and that was last year. We have yet to do anything that way this year. They have not asked, and I'm sure they will pretty soon. We share expenses like Peter and Susan between the regions, and these are their costs. These are not their salary costs. These are the costs like their cell phones and their travel and those things which are not in the staff team budget. And the youth expense is mainly Camp Awesome, plus a few other things that they did. There was a confirmation retreat, et cetera, for youth last year. So our income less expenses is $7.6 million. We transferred money to the archives and the regional fund of $6.8 million, which leaves us an income for the year, or what we call net income, of $733,000. Now, I did a very fast calculation, which is not on the screen. If we had not been selling any properties, we would have had a loss of $1.385 million last year. So that's basically where we're at financially. And I don't know if anyone, what we want to do next, if we want to answer questions.
Yeah, thank you, Janet. This is now an opportunity for questions or comments. If anyone here on site has a question or comment, please come to one of the two microphones and please identify yourself before you ask the question. Go ahead.
Hewitt Holmes, Collier Street United Church. Thank you very much for the presentation. I wish to speak to the one, the financial statement, two, the audited statement, and three, the budget. So which ones do you want me to do right now? Take all of them. Okay, so thanks again for the financial statement. They are truly a reflection of the work of the region. I want to talk about the audited statements. Where do we normally find those audited statements? And is there a way that we can say something in the book going forward as to where it is that we would find the audited statements for the previous year? The third thing, I perhaps don't want to say it yet until we get to the budget, because it's more a commendation and a caution. If we recall last year, we did not present a budget at the annual general meeting, and we had to postpone it. And I left thinking, imagine if I had gone to an annual general meeting of my congregation and I gave them a list of things why we could not present a budget, how would they treat me? I would not have had a good meeting, I must say. This is the second year that we are going down the route of not presenting a budget. And the caution is this should not continue, because there have been previous meetings where we have done projections for at least 5 years. And if we want to build trust as it relates to our financial capacity and our financial abilities, we must present the figures as they are. I would suggest that we, next year, if possible, present at least a 2-year budget. Even if the figures are going to change, at least we can say the budget are projected amounts, and therefore we will present another figure going forward. Thank you.
Since I spoke to the deferral of the budget presentation until the fall, let me respond to your final question. It is Now our practice was a year ago, and we have been instructed by the regional council to do so, to present a 3-year budget projection. The difference between a budget projection and a draft budget, however, is the reason for deferring the draft budget. A year ago, we presented a 3-year budget projection. We could present a budget projection right now, but its detailed relationship to the actual budget that will be presented in the fall is significant. And I think the regional council wants more accuracy in a draft budget rather than a projected budget. If my understanding and that of the executive is incorrect and the regional council would like a budget projection this early in the year, then we will act in accordance with those instructions. Janet, there were some questions to you about the audited statements.
The audited statements for 2022, I believe, are on the website under finance. I'm hoping Donna's here to tell me where they got put.
So they're on the website under the finance line under about, and under there's a finance line called regional finances, and under that is the audited statements for review. You can download a copy of it and read it.
Are there any other questions or comments?
David?
I believe there's a question online.
One online, sorry. Who is it? Cindy Randall?
Just look.
Yes, question, Cindy Randall, would you unmute yourself and turn on your camera?
I'm seeing 2 hands online, David, Rosemary and Ross. Cindy Randall indicates she does not have a question, so it's Rosemary and Ross who currently have their hands up.
Hi, it's Rosemary. Let me just get my camera on. I'm from Timothy Eaton Memorial Church. I'm just the lay representative. And my question is, if Janet could give us a little bit more detail about the asset and liabilities page, especially under the properties. I'm not really clear under, are those properties that are all the churches in the Shining Region area and their value? And is that, I just would like a little bit more detail of what those properties actually are.
Thanks, Rosemary, for the question. I'm hoping Jody's there because I don't have the list in front of me. It is not all the properties by any means in the region. It is properties that have closed or churches that have closed and properties that were transferred to the region.
But not sold then?
But not sold. That's
but not
correct.
sold. So they're sort of sitting in limbo right now.
This is where I hope Jody will kick in. There are properties that have been, pardon?
I said I'm here if
the
you need.
properties that have, Jody, you're here. Okay, do you want to take over this one? You're the one that worked on all this.
I would be happy to do that. Thank you. So yes, we've been partnering with Kindred Works, which is the development arm of the United Property Resource Corporation. And we have transferred 7 9 properties into a regional trust that is managed on behalf of Shining Waters by Kindred Works. Some of those properties are intended to be developed. with housing, and where it is appropriate, it will also include community space to have a worshiping community and to engage in the wider community. So the first property that's currently being developed is Regent Park in Aurelia, and that work is being done. So a number of those properties are being developed with the goal of providing both the long-term housing that is very desperately needed, but also a long-term sustainable income source for the regional council, so that we're not as dependent on selling properties. Other properties that have gone into the regional trust are not suitable for development, but we've been, Kindred Works is working on renting those on behalf of the regional council to again provide a more immediate income source to try and support some of the ministry that we're working with. So that is the line about the properties. They are all properties that have where the congregations have disbanded. Although interestingly, we're now also looking at a model where, and we're in conversation with some congregations where we might transfer properties into the regional trust where the congregation continues to exist. And in those cases, it's a congregation who it doesn't feel able to continue to manage the property, but we're trying to figure out a way for that property to continue to be able to support that congregation. And what we're looking at, and Tim Blair from Kindred Works loves to call it an ecosystem. And so the idea is that the properties that are in the regional trust can support one another as well. So because we have capital within the trust, if one property needs its roof repaired, for example, that can come from the capital, and then another property can benefit at another time. So we're looking at properties that can support the work of the region, but also can we partner with congregations to support congregations remaining in their buildings? It's a very new piece of our work, and we have a couple of congregations that are looking at testing that model for us. But we're really excited about the possibility, and it really speaks to the vision of the Communities of Faith Commission, where we're trying to understand our property as being supportive of all of the ministry of the region. So we're not there yet, but we got some great people working on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe there is another question online.
Ross, can you unmute and ask your question?
Thanks, folks. Good afternoon to all. And it was just responding to one of Janet's concerns that, and Jody did as well, that we seem to be dependent on the sale of property, and that a shortfall in last year's financial statement of over $1 million had we not sold us that amount of property, more than that amount of property. So it might be tentative yet, but is there an estimate where the financial resources can cover our staffing model and that we can carry on? Is there without great changes in personnel? So that was in my mind. To ask, is there any prediction of how soon we can be more balanced in our costs and our income? That's all I'm asking.
If I understand your question correctly, Ross, the short answer is no, but the longer answer is we don't know how long it will take each individual development project to be completed so that it becomes income generating. The long-term plan is the hope that in the fullness of time, we will not be dependent at all on the sale of properties, because we will be able to finance not just our operating costs, but our funding priorities entirely out of the sustainable income that the region receives. However, we cannot attach a date to the fullness of time. We know the direction we are moving in, but it's not an overnight process by any means, and we cannot attach a timeline to it this early.
Thanks for addressing my concern.
I think the next question is Lynella Reed. Lynella Reed, would you please unmute yourself and turn on your camera? A lot of people.
Just as a caveat, if you're interested in some of the projects of Shining Waters Regional Council, which are being worked on by Kindred Works, the Kindred Works website actually has our projects on the website, and I looked at them last night. They're up to date, and the Regent Park in particular project in Aurelia is well underway, and the other projects are underlined on the website, and also talk about the housing they're going to build and how much is rent to geared income. And it doesn't, of course, talk about our income, but it does talk about the projects. It's an interesting website to look at, and it also presents some projects that are not projects of the regional council. For example, the Kindred Works website has a beautiful presentation of St. Luke's United Church in Toronto, and that was one of the first developments that was started by Kindred, and it was also featured in the Globe and Mail. And it's a very interesting project. So that's also on the Kindred's project, but that's a congregational project.
Thank you. Peter, you've got the list of people on. That's one last questions. Oh, okay. Are there any other questions or comments? If yes, please come to the microphone.
Okay, thank you. I am Isaac Kamta, Francophone Ministry. It is not a question, but I would like just to draw our attention. Since last year and even this year, on the budget, we see a bursary for students. We see a small amount. We see activity for youth. It's nothing at all. If we want young people in the church, if we want children in the church, how can we manage to increase what may bring them act as an active person in the congregation? So we are now planning for the centenary. What are the programs for youth or for children? So I just want to support what Eric said, and even this morning, we talk about the presence of young people or children in the church. Only that. Thank you.
Okay, I see no further questions or comments, and we're running a little bit behind schedule now, so we will take a 10-minute break. We will return for our second theme reflection at exactly 3:30. All right, we are going to continue our theme reflection, and I invite Ariel Saigan and others from the General Council, Theology and Interfaith Committee to come forward to lead this next part of the presentation.
The United Church of Canada has a long tradition of justice work. The principles of justice document attempts to capture and state the timeless truths in terms of thoughts of our own age and with the emphasis their age, our age needs. And I'm quoting that from our A Song of Faith document, because as you may have noticed, the Principles of Justice document is consistent with that call to express the timeless truths in terms of thoughts of our own age with the emphasis their age needs. So you will notice that the document is short, direct, almost bulleted, nevertheless full with words that invoke humility, passion for justice, and reconciliation. And also, as you notice, after a page of preamble, the principles are quoted in one word or two, then a short explanation of that principle. So today, I will, after collectively reading the principles and their explanations, I will unpack some of the organizing frameworks that moves the Principles of Justice document. But first, you may ask, where does this document comes from? What's the approach being used before the principles-based approach? And where does the mandate to draft a principles-based approach to justice comes from? The primary reason for shifting away from a policy-based approach to a principles-based approach is to allow the national church to be able to respond much more quickly to changing contexts around issues of social justice. In the past, changes to policy could only be made at the meeting of General Council, which happened every 3 years. Now with the restructuring, General Council meets every year, so changes to policy could be made a little more quickly, and the national office could respond in a bit more timely way. But the annual meetings of General Council are primarily for review of financial statement and not typically for big issues. So policies provide both direction and boundaries beyond which the national church could not go. Our policies can quickly become outdated in relations to a particular situation or context. Because the General Council office couldn't change them for at least 3 years, then they were always trying to catch up to a changed context. Principles, as opposed to policy, allow the national office some flexibility, timeliness, and guidance in determining decisions to sign on to requests from partners and civil society groups. They also allow to move more quickly in terms of putting some of our resources, typically mostly staff time, into responding to needs that arise between the meetings of the General Council. And the principles arise out of commitments the national church has made already and out of policies that the national church has as well. It allowed the General Council office to go further than the current policies would allow. So who can use the document? The principles give direction and guidance to national staff and national committees in the church's work to seek justice and fullness of life. Other councils, staff, lay people, and ministry personnel of the United Church may choose to draw on these principles to guide their own speaking and acting, as well as communities of faith and committees inside communities of faith, like committees on outreach, or if you're a pastor or a church worker that would like to support a certain cause or launch a justice campaign, you could draw inspiration and justification, legitimacy from the principles. It can also be a topic to explore in Bible studies. And for those who has ministries in university campus, you can use this document. It can also be a guide and inspiration for discerning a stand on a particular polarizing issues. So let me present to you the principles and read to you the explanation. So it's anti-oppression, number 1. Number 2 is truth-telling, holistic scope, and then respect for human dignity, full participation and decolonization, equity, mutuality, respect, and reparations, and lastly, costly and prophetic solidarity. I'll read, or we can read all together later on, the explanation on this, and later on, after we read the explanation on the document, I'll unpack some organizing concepts to help us understand what moves this document. So anti-oppression, do you see that? lament and actively oppose the expressions of oppression and colonization, including but not limited to racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, and discrimination of any kind in our churches, our communities, our nation, the world, and God's good creation. Encourage the ministries and work of anti-oppression in our churches. Number 2 is truth-telling. And I forgot to tell you this. As we read this document, I invite you to think of your own context, of the outreach ministries you do in your church, or maybe in your place of work, or your plans to launch a Bible study, or maybe this principle may apply also to your own personal life. So anti-oppression is 1, truth-telling is 2. Recognize, acknowledge, and repent the ways in which the United Church of Canada has contributed to or enabled, whether intentionally or unintentionally, suffering and unjust practices, including its participation in colonization. Amplify the voices of the most marginalized as opposed to those who hold power. Encourage critical analysis of power and thoughtful exploration and questioning of biases. 3rd, holistic approach. Recognize and name complexities and potential multiple oppressions in situations of injustice, and strive to avoid false dichotomies in analysis and in statements. Seek to remain in relationship and in dialogue, even when it is difficult and painful, at the same time being aware of systemic power differences at play. Seek to act ecumenically and with interfaith groups when appropriate. 4th, respect for human dignity. Be in solidarity with those among us experiencing injustice, oppression, the denial of dignity, and violation of human rights. Affirm the right to resist, repudiate, and challenge any expression of injustice. Full participation and decolonization is the 5th. Challenge all expressions of colonialism through recognizing and naming colonial mentalities that are automatically replicated in our institutions and relationship with partners. Support community-based self-determination, including the self-determination of indigenous peoples. Listen attentively to social movements and groups of people who are historically marginalized and who are most affected by injustice. Engage in critical discernment about the best ways forward when called upon to speak and act for justice, to dismantle institutions and practices that are instrumental in replicating colonialism and usher a new mode of thinking and doing that decolonizes. 6th, equity, mutuality, respect, and reparations. Pursue equity, mutuality, respect, and reparations as the path towards justice, reconciliation, and right relations. Continue to be prayerful companions in mutual discernment, discipleship, and justice seeking with United Church partners, ecumenical and interfaith partners, and with other justice-seeking groups. And the last principle is costly and prophetic solidarity. Speak and act prophetically against injustice in all forms, knowing that the Holy Spirit calls us to costly solidarity with the least of this in living our discipleship in the world. So allow me to unpack some of the organizing frameworks that makes this document I think a robust document, a flexible document, a document that can speak in several important issues. So I'll be explaining or offering to you what is the meaning of this 3 words or organizing concepts based on the document. So we have here decolonization, truth, prophetic solidarity. What are these? Decolonization, based on the document, is one organizing framework. And what does it mean in the document? To decolonize is, number 1, the document implies colonization. Colonization of indigenous lands and resources and mental frameworks happen in Canada. Colonization also happened outside Canada with the participation of the Methodist Church and the Presbyterian Church in doing mission work abroad, outside Canada. Part of our church history in the Philippines, for example, the arrival of the Thomasites, they are practically teachers who arrived by boat to civilize, and quote unquote, civilize the native people of the land. And number 2, to decolonize means to decolonize implies that colonization persists and exists as both physical or organizational structure and mental frameworks. These are expressed as internalized inferiority, not being good enough, deviancy behaviors, among others, and that these colonial structures and mental frameworks automatically replicate. The days of formal colonization is gone, but the institution's mental frameworks are legacies of colonialism that stubbornly persist. So one of the ways to decolonize this mental colonization is by acknowledging and naming colonization and by opening up democratic spaces where intentionally the most affected and those who have historically marginalized and considered powerless will be given intentional space to decide for their future and to decide for their resources. So that's decolonization. Truth. What is truth? Very heavy word. And I think we all have answers to this. But the document says that this document understands truth to be emerging from the voices of suffering. Suffering brings out a new rationalities or logic that are oftentimes in conflict with the existing rationalities or with the formal rationalities written on our laws. These rationalities can be expressed with in our laws, with the ways we do our liturgies or our Bible studies. For example, the testimony of the undocumented migrant this morning, Marisol, the existence of undocumented migrant is in conflict with the law. In the understanding of the law, they are undocumented, therefore not worthy to receive health care, not worthy to receive help during times of crisis. In the legal framework, they are considered illegal. Migrant movements, however, would assert that no one is illegal. No person is illegal. Of course, our faith informs us that every person is made in the image of God. So that is how the document understands truth. It emerges not from the place of formal law, but from the place of suffering. Discernment of truth is creating spaces for the voices of suffering to be heard. And this is very important. The reference for justice are those who are unjustly treated. Number 3, prophetic solidarity. This is also heavy, but I'm sure most of you know something about prophetic solidarity. But in the document, in the prophetic tradition of the church and in the document, the image of the prophet is almost always against the powerful. Another dimension of it is that the prophet almost always get killed or demonized or vilified, just as in many cases in the partners of UCC abroad. The husband of Ruth in this morning's panel, who spoke to us this morning, belongs to a partner organization of United Church of Canada in the Philippines. He was killed because he was doing justice work. Prophetic solidarity in this document means choosing the position of powerlessness. So these are just 3 of the many these are just 3 of the probably many organizing terms in this document. There could be more. And the multiple ideas or frameworks that are in these principles or in this principle document speaks of its robustness, its flexibility, its ability to speak to different circumstances that relates to our faith and to our work for justice, to the whole inhabited earth, so that we can live in a more just and more livable place to live in. So, unlike the 10 Commandments, these principles are not written on stone tablets. We can discuss it, improve on it, and we would like to hear your thoughts. So I think we will be breaking into groups. I'll provide you a guide questions. So we can questions for conversations. How has the United Church provided sanctuary to all of us? How do these principles apply to our theme of sanctuary? What are the principles and how might they shape our decision-making? And how does offering sanctuary change who we are as a Christian community? Thank you and good afternoon.
Okay, so we're going to open up our conversation now so that we can converse together as we did this morning. And so we have two folks. We have Ariel, who was speaking to us earlier, and we have Isaac. And they are both part of our regional council, but they are also members of the Theology and Interchurch Interfaith Committee of the General Council. And they were the ones who did some of the background work on the proposal we just heard about. So we're really pleased that they're here to have this conversation with us. And so we thought we would start by, basically, we've got a couple of things. Comments that have come out of your conversations, we'd really love to hear, but also if there are questions about the proposals, questions about any of the conversation that we're having. So Kim's got the mic if folks want to put up their hands, or if you are online, if you want to put up your virtual hand. And I'm going to just, I've got my phone. We're good. Diane, you can let me know if there are folks online. So we'd love to hear about some of your conversations. Oh, over here.
Thank you. My name's Ruth Bramham. I'm a transgender woman, and basically the United Church saved my life. When I transitioned back in the mid-90s, I got kicked out of the church that I was in at the time, went to a second church, got kicked out of that one. Third time lucky, I joined the United Church, and they welcomed me with open arms, and I've been there ever since. And I joined Affirm United in 2001. And I was welcomed onto the board straight away, and I've been there ever since. I think that's a good example of being accepting and accepting all into the church.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just to add to that, we continued that discussion and really highlighted the fact that if you're going to be a sanctuary, you can't be selective, right? And say, oh, yeah, we want to give sanctuary to these people, but not those people, right? And you have to be willing to accept change, which is often a struggle in churches. And I said in my own congregation, we struggled with the 88 decision, and some people left because they weren't ready to change or able to see the other perspectives. So a key thing is to be open to change. And whether it's welcoming young people, welcoming new Canadians, welcoming transgender or other non-binary people, we need to be open to all.
We have two comments online. So Diane, if you want to facilitate that.
Yeah, Victoria, if you would please unmute, introduce yourself, and make your comment.
Victoria Stewart, Fairlawn Avenue, United Church. Our breakout session took a bit to get going, but when it did get going, I want to comment that what we talked about. We heard from Hetty, who's at Nob Hill United in Scarborough, but she is involved with the placement and concerns about people that are admitted from other jurisdictions that we have had to put a halt on at the moment because there are 53 people sitting on a list that are racialized who are having trouble finding placements nationally, any place within the United Church of Canada, and no white ministers who are sitting and want a placement are having that degree of difficulty. Hetty expressed this, and I think it was we started the conversation by saying, where can you take those principles that were introduced today, and how can we look at them in our specific contexts? And she brought forth a very strong context to be addressed.
Thank you, Victoria. Mary Ann, could you unmute, introduce yourself, and make your comment?
Hi, my name is Mary Ann Perry. I'm actually in a small congregation north of Perry Sound, McKellar and Dunchurch. And I was in a chat with Jingle, who is from Toronto, and her place of worship is at Shepherd and Young. And what she was asking me is if I could speak out for her and her congregation. Our church is, my church, the church that I worship at, is struggling because we're an older congregation. Although we have a Sunday school, we have 9 children in our Sunday school. We lack a lot of middle people. We have a lot of older 70 plus people that are left. We have in our 20 people in our congregation. And then we have these young children that are with their mothers that come to our church. And we got talking about a vacation Bible school that Jingle's church is going to be running. And they are in a place where they share their church with 5 other worshiping denominations. I don't know, they're not all United Church, but this is a mission outreach that's affiliated with the Filipino congregation. And their vacation Bible school, they were told they are allowed to, they can only use the foyer of the church to run their vacation Bible school because all the other rooms are being used. If we are to be a sanctuary and to be a place that reaches out and helps, and we are talking about reaching our young people, how sad it is that they would only have a foyer to speak of God and to run their whole vacation Bible school. The last church I was in Niagara Falls, we had 100 children that came for VBS, and we used the whole church. I question how we as a United Church of Canada are ministering to our flock by giving us only a foyer to worship in.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments? And also, over here. Also, feel free to offer questions as well.
I think that would be great. The United Church be a sanctuary to sexual minority and refugee people, but also migrant and rationalized ministers. You know, in one side, many churches are looking for new ministers, but it's a reality that in the other side, many rationalized and migrant ministers in trouble in finding new churches. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there? Oh, I see Kim running.
In our group, I just want to say that we felt that offering sanctuary is never altruistic. The people that are offering sanctuary and welcoming groups such as 2S, LGBTQ, people of color, refugees, you gain so much yourself in the growth of your soul that it's well worth the experience, well worth offering sanctuary.
Thank you. Oh, a hand over here.
Me again. The other key thing that our group mentioned is that if your principle is to provide sanctuary, that needs to be reflected in your budgets. It goes to the comment that was made online about not having space. Well, if you're really serious about supporting it, you find the space, whether you facilitate space in another location with another church, whatever. but you have to be ready to follow through on those commitments, because you can have a principle to be a place of sanctuary, but if you don't walk the talk, if you will, then you might not as well have offered that sanctuary in the first place.
So we have a hand online. So Diane, I'll pass it over to you again.
Thank you. Sung Ran, if you could unmute and introduce yourself. Sung Ran, can you unmute?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, can you hear me? Yes, thank you. Many times we have discussed these beautiful principles and then themes in our General Council and Regional Council. But my question is how we could implement these beautiful principles in our actual very specific concrete context of congregational relationship. So I just wonder and confess kinds of fatigue, and that is my question. We need to actually live in these beautiful themes and principles, and then how? And that is what we have discussed in our group. And to be honest, I would like to hear from you, from my heart.
Thank you. I'm going to invite our folks at the table to offer some wisdom.
Reverend Isaac Camtas with me. He's part of the working group for Principles of Justice document. Would you like to say a word? Would you like to greet the congregation, say a word in your comments?
Okay. Bonjour tout le monde.
Bonjour.
Okay. So, yeah, I have represented the group, and we are very happy to share with you what we have done. Okay, thank you. We are sharing with you what we have done since last year. And what I can see through our discussion is also that people accept favorably the principle, and it's not the question is not why it, but it is how to apply them. And that is very important, because one fact, we have to work on it by the General Council. And the 43th, no, the 44th General, okay. Okay, the General Assembly was, we took a decision, and we can see the fish, which is with the head, which is the new direction the United Church is taking. It means it is the growth, and the growth is deep spirituality, their justice, and bold discipleship. So the principle is a way to apply this, to be involved and give to the church this new direction she is taking. And all of us are part of it. It's not just a clergy, not just but everyone is. As my dear brother explained, it is not only for some people from Christ in the United Church, but that is what can lead our action. How can we say that we are a church? So this is a way we can follow. And what you said, all what you have remarked for me seems to go into that direction.
Thank you. And thank you for those questions and comments. A lot of those are asking for how questions. And those how questions are emerging from specific context. Unfortunately, the document answers the question why rather than how. But yeah, I think I understand where most of the questions comes from. Context varies. I mean, situations varies, and the principles doesn't answer the question how. The principles answer the question why. The principles give legitimacy to a certain cause. The principles can give justification for your ministries, but how it will be implemented, it depends from context to context, and context varies. Sometimes context changes from time. Context changes, and it happens very fast. Like at one moment you have this issue, and another moment your community deals with another issue, and you have another context to deal with. So I think it's important to distinguish what's, especially on justice work, what's the role of the church and what's the role of the state. The citizen pays taxes not to the church but to the state. So there are justice work that the church can involve itself to, but on a limited space or a limited scope, which the church has, or which the state has to make corrections, or has to amend its laws, because we pay taxes to the government or to the state. But it's important to ask what do we have as a church? What theological resources, ecclesial resources that we have in order to support, for example, migrant communities, LGBTQ, S2S communities, and other marginalized communities. So what do we have as a church? Is it theological resources? Is it ecclesial resources? I remember in one of our discussions, how are we going to support migrant workers attending their rallies, wearing your clerical collar when you attend their rallies? Those are just theological resources. Probably write a sermon about them, or write something in the newspaper that advocates for those kind of communities. So I think an awareness of what we have as a church, our theological resources, ecclesial resources, even the spaces in our buildings, can be sanctuary to them, because we only can do as much. And one of the best things that we can do is to lobby to our government to make better spaces, or make better laws, or advocate for the marginalized communities. Yeah.
Thank you. I think we have another hand online.
Lang, could you unmute and introduce yourself, please?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, we were a group of 3, and we never did get the questions. So we were talking about various things, but we also did get into the situation about the Israel-Gaza situation and where the church stands or should stand on that. It was an interesting discussion, and that's where we ended up. And it was interesting that one of our people from a Toronto congregation was joining us from Saskatoon, where he was on his business. And we had 3 of us, all from the Toronto area churches. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've got a hand back here on site, and then I know we've got another one online as well. So well, okay, there was first. Is it okay if we then go online and then we'll come back there? Okay.
All right. My name is Japhet Ndlovu, a staff at the General Counsel Office. The whole question of applying principles-based approach to justice, first of all, begins at, as Ariel rightly said, creation of awareness. In our small group here, it came out that, oh, okay, this was passed when, so that's the first level as leaders in communities of faith to make these principles available so there is awareness. Once we've done the awareness level, justice issues will come and they will need analysis. Analysis in terms of the points that are in the principles. Is the issue we are dealing with affecting human dignity? Do we have to be silent? If we have to do something, what is it that we can do as a local community of faith? So those 4 stages, awareness creation, analysis of the issue, and deciding on which advocacy method we will use. Are we going to approach our member of parliament because this particular issue is about speaking truth to power? Or are we going to have a vigil, a prayer vigil around this particular issue? Or are we going to literally use a method that attends to those that are victimized? So the advocacy action will be chosen as appropriate by the local community of faith. And so awareness, 1, analysis, 2, advocacy, 3, and action, 4. Those pieces would help us at a local community of faith. There are also national pieces that need ecumenical collaboration, regional collaboration, and other pieces. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll go back online and then we have a hand over here.
Robin, could you unmute and introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Reverend Robin. I serve faith communities in both Toronto area and in Malton and Mississauga. I was reflecting on an earlier comment made about, deep spirituality and creating space. The ministries where I serve do so in different ways, but I was thinking with the Trinity Malton community, the board is of one mind in terms of their spirituality and creating space for the people in our neighborhood that are in need of accommodation for children's programming, for seniors ministries, for outreach, small food bank. Their heart is there, and the challenges, of course, are continuing to lift up the needs in advocacy roles. When I reflect on my early years here at Uganda Martyrs, many of our issues over the summer were bylaw issues. Members of my community were taking refugees into their homes. We were opening our space to the women who were living on the streets on Peter Street. And our challenges were in advocacy, I think. trying to find ways that we could open the church without having the fire department down our back or other places, other opportunities where we could find service. I'll never forget one board meeting where we said, okay, we only have very limited washrooms. And we came up with the idea of bringing showers in from the city and hooking them up in the parking lot. Certainly the spirit is there. The challenges for us, I think, in many ways were in advocacy. And they truly have been giving sanctuary in the communities where I serve as part of United Church. Thank you.
Thank you. Over here, there was a hand, and Diane gently reminds us, and we're doing pretty well on site, but to be sure to introduce yourself.
Thank you so much. My name is Lourdes Fuentes Lumi at Davenport, Perth. And I'm glad to hear all of you talking about these issues. My experience as a migrant, I'm similar one of the speakers today. I become a resident after 14 years last year, thanks to Rev Emily, that she advised me and she supported me, Rev, the same Rev Tina, that I'm very glad to have them as a mentors. But one of the things that I hear in the conversation that our members say, how we can implement this. My suggestion is these principles need to be outside of us, acknowledge. People need to reflect, our community need to reflect each other. Maybe invite people, make outreach, bring to us, and discuss each topic every week. And like you suggest, break down everything and find what are the needs of the community. Because communities are changed all the time. People from all over the world coming. And one of the things that I found yesterday from the Catholic community, one of the Mexican guys, I'm from Mexico, he came very happy to tell me, I received a certificate because I went to hear the God words. And I'm part of the committees to be engaged, to share with others. And I'm very happy with him and see a certificate for a church. I never see once before, right? And he feel that faith on him. They touch him, right? And I think we can do similar things, invite people to come to see us in the church with outreach. Try to find youths, because I know seniors is hard to find or put posters or call communities, but by summer job positions, by other kind of work, we can invite and have these workshops, conversations, each other, each topic, and be involved. And thank you so much. And yeah, it's great to stay here. And what we need to do is work hard, pray, and have faith. And one thing, prevention, because life is changed, communities is changed. Now Davenport is full the Latin people and other communities. It's not the same white community around, but we looking for climate action and disasters coming. And we don't have enough showers, bathrooms, or things to support communities in something happen. How are we gonna deal with that things during the future? We need to start thinking on how we're gonna help our neighbor. Who knows who's living in a wheelchair up my neighbor back to my home and care for them to bring to the church if something happen. How we gonna feed people, how we gonna do and dealing with mental problems if something happen. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got, either Dave, our tech guy, is going to speak, or we're just changing the batteries. Oh, hey, you are welcome. You are welcome.
Good.
Okay, we've got a hand just partway down here, Kim, right down here. And then I think we've got one online, so we'll hear from you. And if you want to introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Robin Mullaney. I'm a member of Collier Street United Church in Barrie. And I have some thoughts about how we are expressing interchurch and interfaith activities. And first of all, I think it has helped us as a church to identify our mission as we believe it to be as followers of Jesus and part of the Christian faith, which has to do with compassion. It has to do with inclusivity. It has to do with the sharing of love and acceptance and a number of other things. So that was the start for us. And as always has been, I do believe. The other thing is that we have made it very important, have a very important focus on community outreach. And in that respect, we have been able to collaborate and make a connection with other faiths within our community. Through our refugee sponsorship, we've learned of those beliefs with the Muslim faith, with our Breakfast to Go program, which we are in partnership with 5 other churches, a Catholic church, community church, a number of united churches within our community. We've had a member of our church who initiated, with the help of the United Church funding, with a program called the Listener's Post. And for those who have taken that post and are interested in finding out how to listen without judgment, without a fix-it mentality, with compassion, that is another way that we can express an interfaith connection with members. There are other ways. We have members that are involved with the Kairos group, which is an ecumenical organization which deals with social justice. And therefore, we are reaching out in support to migrant workers and to the Indigenous folks within our community. So those are some suggestions that have worked for us. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it back to the online group where there's a hand.
John, could you please unmute and introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, Yawankoa. My name is John Lee. I'm the steward of Congregational Health at Hope United and representative for Shining Waters here. We at Hope have always, or since I've been there, have always done a great reach out program. But one thing that we at Hope have been experiencing over the last few years is an aging building. I'm thankful to be part of a congregation and a community that has been in place since 1885. 1900 is when the foundation of that church was laid in 1929, after the formation of the Union. The structure, what we see at Main and Danforth, is the structure that we see today with few alterations. It's getting old. Much of our money and much of our time has been we had a pretty crappy winter. We had sewer issues. And we ourselves are responsible for quite a large amount of money for a small congregation. And the city had to step up and spend another $100,000 just on 1 to 2 days' work. On an aging community, as we see within the United Church, we see a lot of issues where our churches that are older, we have a lot of capital expenses in which we have got to be fixing our windows, fixing our doors. I love it at Hope because it is literally a puzzle each and every Sunday. Because when you go to Main Street, you will actually have doors that you cannot get into because of health and safety reasons. You walk around the other side and you try and open those doors. and you can't get in because you have obstacles in the way because we're having a restoration within that portion of our church. But somehow, some way, they find a way that they can get in. And on Sunday morning, we have every Sunday somebody new. So it's an absolutely wonderful pleasure to be part of a faith community. Outreach comes from the heart, no matter how much we try and plan. Goodness gracious, we have had things thrown at us over the last few years that hardly some of us are having a hard time bouncing back from what has just happened. The United Church is very important to many of us who have nobody else within our lives. And I thank each and every day, not for the United Church of Canada. I do, but I thank my faith community. And I thank that little group of people that do our seniors lunch, that are able to do any kind of outreach that we can. And our church deals with rentals. And yes, we actually have to do as a congregation, where do we fit in? Because it's been rented out for the whole year. Where do we as a congregation get together that we can start planning? We have to start looking at those balances here. It's great that we can bring in money from selling of those churches, but how many of those churches were from amalgamations where 3 or 4 churches circled around one and said, come and join us. And then the very next 6 months, they sell off that property and they leave that congregation stranded because not everybody voted yes. I'm proud that at Hope, we voted no, or else we would have been that property that Jody Mulpey would be talking about all that money coming in for us, that we're selling those properties. We're able to survive a bit longer. I like being part of a church that, yeah, we may not have a lot of money, but we're a good little church. We got a good minister. He started out as a student. Now he's a fully ordained minister, and I thank Creator each and every day. Yes, we've got a good, stable foundation. We've got brick and mortar that need to be fixed. But I thank Creator that tomorrow and Sunday, I'll be able to go to Hope and say, yes, this is my home, which makes the United Church part of my home. Nyawenkowa Chimigwech.
So I think we're going to offer Ariel and Isaac, if there's any last comments that you want to make. Oh, I think you have to turn.
Just see how you are very, very enthusiast with the principle. So that confirms that this principle came at their time. So may God bless you, bless us, who will lead and to make this United Church essential for us and for all. Thank you.
Yeah, also, that's right. Thank you for all your comments. I think we had a rich discussion on sanctuary and principles of justice. Just would like to highlight that sometimes awareness of the issue is not automatic. Our theological resources, our faith does not automatically provides a lens to be a church that does justice. So I think it's important that we do education work around justice issues. We immerse ourselves in their lives. One of the tasks of the prophet, or one of the identities of the prophet, is that the prophet is always immersed in the condition of the people where suffering exists. So I think if we want to be a sanctuary, we have to be a prophet immersed in the conditions of the suffering people. Thank you.
So I think let's offer our thanks to Ariel and Isaac, and
Thank you, Aisha.
and I think more broadly to the General Council Theology and Interchurch and Interfaith Committee for this work that they've done on behalf of all of us. So thank you.
Thank you all. We have a slight alteration in our agenda. We've been asked if it would be possible to consider one of the proposals that we would have been coming to after dinner, before dinner, because the seconder of the motion will have to leave. And so if Susan Eagle is present in the room, we will turn our attention now to, let me find the right page here. Proposal SW 2024-04, Reducing Homelessness in Canada. Susan will speak first to the proposal for up to 5 minutes, and then if you have any questions or wish to speak to the motion, you will be able to do so. Susan.
Thank you. I'm Susan Eagle. I chair the Social and Ecological Justice Commission, and it is from this commission that this proposal comes. A couple of things I want to remark on as we start. Statistics you already know, which is we have a huge number, a crisis number of people who are homeless in our community nightly. Out-of-date statistics identify 35,000 with up to 235,000 a year who are homeless. Those are out-of-date statistics already. With 1.7 million people who live in precarious housing, which means that they are 1 week, maybe 1 month away from being homeless if something changes in their status, such as a rent increase or a repair issue or an unemployment or just a late check. Causes of unemployment in our community, many. High mortgage rates, high rental rates, lack of housing units, vacancy decontrol, demolition, conversion to short-term rental or Airbnb. In fact, we are losing housing faster than we are creating it. So it's against that backdrop that we offer the motion that we bring to you today. A comment was made about the work that Kindred Works is doing for us, and that is fabulous. It is great, but we could liquidate every United Church building we have in this country, and we would still not be able to provide sufficient affordable housing. We need advocacy, we need political will, and we need money that is provided to make that housing happen. In looking at a solution for housing, there's 3 areas that we know are important. One is to build more housing, create more housing. The second is to keep what we have through repair or keeping it affordable. The third area is to provide supplements to top up rents for people. All 3 of those areas are important. One alone will not provide a solution. And it's tough work ahead of us because we are so far behind, and we have fallen so far behind in creating affordable housing. So our proposal, if you look at area 4, which is the what might Shining Waters do, covers those 3 areas of creation, top up, and trying to hang on to what we've got. Commending the government for money for creating more housing, absolutely, but looking at a homelessness prevention and housing benefit, calling on the government to ensure that there's funding for encampment response programs, calling on the provincial government to take steps to preserve existing affordable housing rents. And there's a number of items laid out there in terms of how that might happen through reinstating rent control, through stemming the conversion of housing into other forms of housing that make it then unaffordable. So I think I'm less than 5 minutes. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing us to present this proposal tonight early.
Thank you, Susan. So now there is an opportunity to ask any questions or speak to the motion. And having just had our discussion of the justice principles, I hope that people will look through the lens of those principles in what you have to say. First question.
It's a procedural point of order. There was no motion to change the agenda, and I am concerned that there are people who are expecting this conversation to happen after supper. who who were planning to speak to this proposal who aren't in the room right now.
What would you suggest?
I was just going to say, initially we were told it would be in the 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock time, and then that got changed just recently. So there may be some folks who thought it was going to be now and wouldn't be available this evening.
I think your point is well taken. In order to get the motion onto the floor with its seconder, I would suggest we have the motion moved and delay the discussion until after dinner, when the hordes who wish to speak to the motion will be able to do so.
We are in your hands, Mr. Chair. I will move it, and it is seconded by Brian McIntosh.
All right. So the motion is before us. We will discuss it after dinner. Thank you very much to you both. And now we will find my right page again. We're going to break for supper shortly. And for those who purchased an on-site meal, the dinner will be at 6 o'clock. And remember, the wristband to have on is yellow. And remember that nominations and requests for new business close at 6 p.m. and we will gather again at 7. But before we break for dinner, we have 2 other things to do. First, I would like to invite Pat Gilmore, who is here from Grand River Bookstore, to offer some suggestions for those looking to pick up some new books while you're here. Is Pat in the room or out at the book sale? Sorry to catch you unexpectedly there. You were as far away as possible.
Well, thank you so much for having me here today. I bring greetings from Grand River Books, which is in beautiful Paris, Ontario, and we're part of Five Oaks Center. And how many people have visited Five Oaks? Okay, come on and keep on visiting us. So start with that. And so I wanted to tell you about a few books today. The other major thing I need to tell you is if you order something today, but however big your order could be, we do not charge you any shipping if you order it here today or tomorrow. So that's one good thing. And we do hope that you will continue to order from us as time goes on. Well, I was just up at Canadian Shield, and it was really very nice. They gave me the opportunity to speak too. And we had the moderator there. And the moderator kept reviewing books that I didn't have. So embarrassing. So I thought I'd bring them here today. She's not here to tell you about them. But anyway, these are 2 books that she recommends. The Wall Between, all right? And this is an excellent book, conversation about Palestine and Jewish relations to people. They're going across Canada right now, so you might want to think about that. And the other thing is, and it's called Imaginable, How to Create a Hopeful Future. So this is all very good for you to be thinking about how to make things much better for you. All right, so those are a couple of books that she recommended. Then I want to recommend something from the United Church, because the United Church is still publishing. This is by David Sparks. It's called to Act Prayers with Roots in the Gospel of Mark. So you have prayers, but you also are going to read all of Mark by the time you're finished with this book. And as you go through each chapter, there are study questions. So if you're looking for a Bible study, this is a perfect book to pick up. And if you don't want to pick that up, or you want 2 Bible studies going in your congregation, I also want to recommend the books by Donald Schmidt, which are books for progressive Christians. And how many of you ever used any of these books? Some of you, okay. Well, you better get there. So this one was the New Testament. We did all the New Testament women, but excuse me, there's Revelation, there's Beatitudes, there's creation, the birth of Jesus, and so on and so forth. He's done a fabulous job. And we just finished having a conversation with him for 2 hours over Zoom. So I asked him, would you do that for other people? Absolutely. So if you do one of these Bible studies, he has promised that he will do a Zoom meeting with you afterwards to talk about it. So there you go. You heard it here first. Another book that I just want to mention to you that has really been very popular is Romeo Dallaire's The Peace. And of course, you remember Romeo Dallaire and all he went through with Rwanda. And now he's written some shorter stories, some thoughts about peace. Then I thought you better think of something for the summer under the tree and so on. There's one table that's got all books just for you to read under a tree. And this one is one that I just finished reading. I really enjoyed it. It's called A Great Country, and it's by Shilpi Somaya Gowda. And some of you may have read some of her other books. She started out writing The Secret Daughter. And it's just a family in California and sort of what happens to their family. So a very engrossing book. And then, of course, we have to have books for the children, too. We have lots of children's books there. They have actually been going very quickly. And I really like the author, Peter Reynolds. And one of the books that I've chosen today is called Say Something. And I think this fits right in with what you've been talking about today with sanctuary and so on. So it says, if you see an injustice, say something peacefully. Inspire others to do the same. So it's all kind of a book like that. In other words, you speak up. Don't let injustice continue. So I have lots and lots of books out there, and I would hope to go home with at least 2 empty boxes. Thank you very much for having me here.
Thank you very much, Pat. We encourage everyone to visit the book display, which is just outside the sanctuary. You may have noticed during the breaks that there have been slides promoting Then Let Us Sing, the new online musical portal that will be available later in 2024. I would like to invite Amy Lee to come forward and lead us in 2 of the new pieces that will be available through this resource. Thank you very much, Amy. I would now like to invite one of our chaplains, Brianne Swan, to offer grace as we break for supper.
Let us pray. God bless to us this bread, and give bread to all those who are hungry, and hunger for justice to those who are fed. God bless to us this bread. Amen.